And we want to return just a portion of that which you can give to us to take care of. We want to return that to you today. And we pray that this church will take care of that in a way that is pleasing in your sight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today we celebrate United Methodist Women's Sunday. We have a lot of them here in the congregation with you today. So if you are currently a UMW member, I'd ask that you please stand. Thank you. As you can see, there are many of us amongst you that belong to this very special group of ladies. These ladies work hard throughout the year. Their hands very seldom sit idle. They contribute to support the women, children, the sick, the old, the young, throughout this world, not just here in Flagler County. However, they do spend a lot of their time on projects reflected here in our own county and in Flagler Beach. United Methodist Women started in 1869. They had 8 members at that time. Today, in 2018, there is more than 800,000 women who belong to this special group. Flagler Beach United Methodist Church has done many things here in our community, such as our Christmas gifts that we give to the families in need, the food pantry, we provide workers, just as some of our men do, to the local, as well as our own food pantry. The shawl ministry. Many of you have had to make a request for a shawl that is hand crocheted or knitted by the women here in the shawl ministry group. They are then blessed by Pastor Janine and given to those who are in need of comfort. Encore is a big help to everybody. Many of you right here in this church today experienced what they could do after the disaster of Irma. UMW provides monies to them to buy cleanup supplies, the mops, the buckets, all the cleaning products that they use after the floods. They don't do it just here in Flagler. We do it all over the country, all over the world. So our dollars are important. But this past year, we used them right here. Some of our ladies, I'd like to tell you, have spent many years right here serving the UMW. You do not have to be a member of this church to serve with us. We are open to accept all the help, the ideas, and the blessings from women outside of this church membership. So if you have a special friend who you think would enjoy spending time with us, please invite them. We welcome all. Carol Elliott is our current president. She has been involved with women in the Methodist Church for a total of 58 years. Carol, would you please stand so they can see who you are? Not that we don't know it. Carol has also served during that 58 years with 40 of them as being an officer, either here or at the national or state level. We thank you for all your hard work. Carol moved to Flagler in 1977 when she wed, and she became a member of this church and an officer in our own UMW in 1978. We appreciate it. Thank you. I currently have been here for 9 years this July. 8 years plus I have served as an officer. I have served in a couple of the seats. And I have grown so much. And I thank you, ladies, for the opportunity. Let's see. Next we have Betty Roundtree. She's in the back. Betty, if you would stand. Betty has 20 years of service with UMW and other capacities besides UMW. She is part of the Wisdom Circle, which is part of UMW. She is also a leader in the Church Women United. She's done that for 18 years while working with UMW and the Wisdom Circle. She is currently our secretary. Thank you, Betty, for all you do. Betty Seubert, our organist. Of course you have. Betty has 22 years with UMW and 22 years as our treasurer. Betty is retiring after this year, but she's still going to attend when she can, right? Betty has put timeless hours in helping with our annual rummage sale and bazaar. Her leadership is going to be missed, but we'll still see her here and there. Thank you, Betty. Martha Luke. Martha headed north today and is not able to be with us. She is one of our snowbirds. She has a total of 25 years with UMW, 15 of which combined officer seats she has held. She is currently our Social Action chairperson. Next, we have Greta Coleman. Greta, are you here today? No. Okay. Greta has a total of 6 years with UMW, and this is her first year as an officer. Joyce Joyce McDonald, who is in the back. Joyce McDonald has been a member for 18 years of UMW, 16 years here as an officer. And Joyce, we thank you for all you do. She provides the cards that go out to the missionaries, to servicemen, all kinds of things. She supports the Encore annually, brings it to our attention so we can do our drive for Encore. She has, in the past, collected toothbrush, toothpaste, and such toiletry items for the missionaries and veterans and service people in Daytona. Next, we have Hannah Metz. Miss Hannah came to us as a pastor's wife. She has been a member of UMW for 16 years. She has held an office of a combined 14 years as an officer. Hannah heads up our reading program. There are many books in the library, and Miss Hannah keeps track of them, orders the new ones from year to year that are put out by the district that we must read in order to qualify for our awards for the reading program. Next, we have Darlene Hunter. Darlene. Darlene has been a member for 48 years, 10 years as an officer. She is currently in charge of our membership drive. So if you are interested in joining us, please do. We won't say no. We'll keep you busy and you will have lots of fun. At this time, I would ask Tomi. Tomi has a special award that she would like to present this morning. That is our scholarship award. Oh, this one up front.
In 1998, the Flagler Beach United Methodist Church established a scholarship program using the interest earned from the principal as the award. The first award of $125 was given to Matthew Katsolis in 1999. The women have continued to give awards through 2015. There were no applicants in 2016. Up to this year, the awards have totaled $5,575. This year, our award of $300 is presented to Jeffrey Gross, who plans to continue. Will you come forward, Jeff? We hope our scholarship will meet your goals while you're in college. And our prayers and best wishes go with you as you study to prepare yourself for your career.
It's wonderful to see our dollars help our own. Jeff has been going to school part-time, sings in the choir part-time. He also works a job.
Actually, school is full-time.
Full-time, okay. So we wish you luck.
Thank you.
Now, at this time, I would like to introduce to you Melynne. Melynne came here about a year ago, and I've had this wondering in my head, who is she? What is she about? She just all of a sudden appeared as part of us. So I think it would be wonderful if she would share a little bit with us. So Melynne, she's going to lay
You know, I'm president of the Flagler Beach United Methodist Women. And before we continue on, we want to present a special mission recognition pin on behalf of the local unit. Special mission recognition pins are given to persons within the church whom we wish to honor for their service to the Lord. A special mission recognition is a gift of money for mission work made through United Methodist Women to honor a chosen person. A certificate in that person's name and a gold pin with a cross are issued by the national organization and a record kept of the honoree. We would like to recognize Darlene Hunter with a special recognition pin. She is our current recording secretary of the Administrative Council, a member of the Pastor Staff Parish Committee, and a member of the Nominations and Leadership Development Committee. Darlene is also very active with United Methodist Women and is currently serving as our mission coordinator of membership, nurture, and outreach. She serves on the mission team and helps make decisions for the unit, and she always works at our bazaars and rummage sale and helps staff the resource center when it's our turn. So would you come forward, Darlene? Here we go, there's your... Don't talk about it. That's the big button.
Silver button.
It's mine.
The big button? The one goes click.
Well, it's not her camera.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darlene. We plan to honor and give a pin to Vic Klotz today, but he's not with us, so we'll do that on another Sunday. United Methodist Women also like to present certificates of appreciation to people in the church who have helped in many ways to make our church life better. First, we'd like to thank Mary Black. She is co-founder and leader of the Prayer Shawl Ministry Group and serves on the Staff Parish Relations Committee. She is a member of the United Methodist Women and is treasurer of the Wisdom Circle. And like all circle members, she purchases items for the health and school kits for farm worker children and helps collate them into the proper bags for distribution. She works at the United Methodist Women Bazaar and the church rummage sale, lunch and bake sale. Will you come forward, Mary? Mary's had a bout with the shingles, so she's not at her top right now.
Not running marathons.
She ought to
Thanks
have
for all
an
you do.
award just because of having shingles.
Thank you, dear. Taken here. Okay, thanks, Mary. We would also like to thank Harriet and Randy Pritchard for all they do in many different projects in the church. As you can see, they sing in the choir, they have worked on our landscaping, and have helped church members following the hurricane. Harriet is our lay leader and delegate to the annual conference. As lay leader, she is a member of the finance and nominations committees. Randy is a member of the board of trustees. So if they'll come forward, we'll give them their certificate. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we have one other person we want to honor. And that's our head usher, Steve Seubert. Steve responded with a yes when asked to usher quite a few years ago. And so you see him almost every week greeting folks with a big smile, opening the door, taking up the offering, and directing the people during communion. He frequently ushers at our special services too. Steve always helps at the rummage sale with the men's stuff, helping decide what it is and how much to charge. And he's a great help to his wife, Organist Betty Seubert, with her many projects for the church. So we want Steve to come forward. Thanks a lot, Steve, for all you do.
One more thing, I would like to thank the ushers. Today we asked 4 of our lovely ladies from UMW, Martha, Phyllis, Betty Roundtree. And I said Betty Roundtree because we have so many Bettys. That's a popular name here in the church. Also, Darlene Hunter. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. That was wonderful. Thank you for being a part. And now, if you will stand as you are able, we are going to sing hymn 707. Look at my hands and my feet. It is I myself. Touch me and see. A ghost doesn't have flesh and bones, as you see I have. When he had said this, he showed them his hands and feet. And when they still did not believe it because of joy and amazement, he asked them, "Do you want anything to eat? Do you have anything here to eat?" And they gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he took it and ate it in their presence. He said to them, "This is what I told you while I was still with you. Everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms." Then he opened their minds so they could understand the scriptures. He told them, "This is what is written. The Christ will suffer and rise from the dead on the third day, and the repentance of forgiveness of sin will be preached in his name in all nations, beginning in Jerusalem. You are witness to these things. I'm going to send you what my Father has promised, but stay in the city till you have been clothed with power from on high." The word of God for the people of God.
So for our anthem today, we'll be singing "Here I Am, Lord," which you can sing along with us at page 593 in the hymnal. "Here I Am, Lord," page 593, verses 1 and 3.
Still in.
Still in the hospital. Martin. still in hospital with pneumonia, correct? Carol Elliott will be having finger surgery on Friday of this week. We have a praise from a member of our choir. Bill Rosado is moving back in his house from Hurricane Irma. I have two requests here. One is for Steve Johnson, a retired deputy sheriff who's on the list for a heart transplant. And another is Tracy Brown. She is disabled and needs prayer that she can make it past some tough financial and physical limitations. Larry Picket has a cousin, Billy, who has a leg infection and whose wife has been diagnosed, Grace, with pancreatic cancer. So that family really needs our prayers. Larry's cousin, who's more like an aunt, comes from a large family, fell this week and broke her hip. Unfortunately, Margaret has dementia. And as a result of that, they say having to have the hip surgery will make the dementia more pronounced. Do any of the rest of you have prayer requests? I'll start with the choir so you don't get skipped. Yes?
I have a friend named Phyllis Hertfelder.
Phyllis?
Phyllis Hertfelder. She has brain cancer. She's a longtime ex-neighbor and friend of mine. We raised our kids together.
Thank you. Yes?
My 5-year-old grandson is in Orlando Children's Hospital. He has a brain infection, and for right now he can't walk. But they say in about a month he should be recovered.
Name? First name?
Trent.
Trent. Anyone else? I think our Sara has been a little ill herself this week. She's preventing us from getting her germs or from getting our germs. I don't know which, but we want to keep Sara on our list. Awesome. Okay, would you go with me to the Lord in prayer? Gracious Heavenly Father, we come here in awe of you today. We come praising your name. We come knowing that you loved us before we ever even understood what it was that God loved us. And we promise you that we love you and that we want to be the kind of people you would have us to be. We know that we have a list of people here who need your help. We have praises, we have medical issues, and you know all our issues, but you said if we would come to you and ask, that you would be with us and that you would help these people and that you would take care of them. And I'd like to take just a moment for us to each take a moment of silence, pray for yourself, and pray for those unspoken requests that you have, that you didn't hold your hand up to tell us about this morning. I pray for our pastor as she has her week of Sabbath. I pray that we as a congregation will let her have her week of Sabbath, that we will honor this as she is on her vacation this week. And now I ask that we would join together and pray, not recite, but pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. And now, Melynne. Melynne, did it again. Melynne.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm mindful of our time, so I will try to still get all of y'all out of here by noon. I was asked to share by Alice with the UMW just a little bit about who I am and the work that I do as a deacon. And I thought first it might be helpful if I explained the role of the deacon in relation to the role of the elder. An elder is usually a pastor of a church. Janine is an elder in the United Methodist Church. And her ministry, as you guys are probably well aware of, is a broad, generalized ministry where she oversees the life of the congregation and worship and discipleship and ministry, and just has a broad responsibility for all of you and for the church. And a deacon is called to a specialized ministry. One way to think about it is to think about physicians, and if you have a general practitioner or a family doctor, that would be like Janine, they kind of take care of everything. And then if you have to go to someone like a cardiologist or a dermatologist, something like that, because you have a specific problem that they specialize in, that's kind of what a deacon does. They have a specialized ministry where they just focus on a very specific type of ministry. And some deacons serve within the church. Maybe they're a leader of worship or a minister of Christian education. But the idea really, when they made deacons a permanent order, ordained minister, is to have them serve beyond the church. And that's because as an elder is called to bless and administer the sacraments, particularly the sacrament of communion, in which she takes ordinary elements and prays that God's Spirit would be present as you took those elements. Well, in that same way, I'm called to take that sacramental philosophy into the world and to point to ways that God is showing up in ordinary ways in our ordinary lives. So my specialized ministry right now is creative writing. I've been in a couple other specialized ministries in the past. My hope is to use my writing as a way of pointing to how God shows up in our midst in ways that bring hope and healing and peace and justice. And to share with you some of how I do that, I wanted to share with you an essay I had written, a little bit about my faith journey and a little bit about my grandmother and about how God showed up. So I'd like to start with a passage from Psalm 139. It's verses 7 to 10. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. The Word of God. So when I was a little girl, my family didn't go to church, but almost every summer we traveled back home to my grandmother's farm in North Louisiana, where I went with her to the country church down the road. It was a small white building sitting next to the graveyard. It was a humble structure, it had no steeple, and somebody passing by may not even have known that it was a church, except there was a little sign that read, Beth Prairie Methodist Church. Inside, the worn wooden pews, the faded hymnals, and the ancient scent all bore witness to the 100+ years of its existence. I thought of that church as God's house, but I knew God didn't hang out only there. She followed my grandmother everywhere she went. Mama was my first memory of God, someone who kept me safe, wrapping her warm, loving arms around me and enfolding me into her bosom just because she delighted in my presence. I used to think that I was her favorite until I realized that the other 11 cousins, she loved the other 11 cousins the same way she loved me. So I considered myself fortunate that her love was big enough for all of us. Mama's God was an up-close, not afraid to get her hands dirty kind of God. She fed me biscuits and fried chicken, saved me from the black snake slithering too close, and she even forgave me when I hid my black-eyed peas, the ones that she had grown and picked and shelled and boiled. She forgave me when I hid them in my iced tea because I didn't like the mealy way they tasted. Mama even cared about the dogs. gathering scraps from our plates and setting them outside in a pie tin for the strays that came around. And I knew back then, I knew in the marrow of my bones that Mama's God loved me. In the deepest part of my spirit, I knew I was lovable. But then, not long after I turned 14, I went with some kids from my neighborhood to a church youth group, and I heard about a God who had to kill his son because of me. A God who could not be in my presence and was not delighted in me. The youth group leader told me I was bad and that only Jesus dying on the cross could make me good. Only Jesus could bring me back to God. This did not sound like my grandmother's God, the God who showed up everywhere, even on Mama's back porch, the God who wrapped her arms around me and drew me close. This new God sounded harsh, sounded like a judge. If only I did the right thing and accepted Jesus into my heart, then I would not get punished and end up in hell. There was a palpable difference to me between the unconditional love of my grandmother's God and the conditional love of the youth group's God. It didn't make any sense to me that if I said a few abstract words, a simple prayer, then God would accept me. I didn't have to say anything to be accepted and loved by Mama's God. However, Mama's God was 1,000 miles away from where I lived then, and I wanted to be a part of the youth group. I wanted to belong. I wanted to be loved. So I kept my questions to myself, and I said the words I had been told to say. I accepted Jesus into my heart. I was told I was now acceptable to God. I could enter God's presence. I could go to heaven after I die. I had hoped against all hope that once I said the right words, I would feel the same way that I felt back on my grandmother's farm. But I didn't. My suspicions were confirmed. Saying the right words might be enough to get into heaven, but it wasn't going to be enough to get back to Mama's God. Now that I knew God set conditions, I recognized I would not only have to say the right words, but I would have to do the right things if I was ever going to get God to love me the way she loved me back at Mama's house. I was going to have to figure out what pleased God and make sure I did those things. And of course, this was nothing new to me. It was the way the rest of my life had already been laid out. My parents were satisfied with me when I behaved well, but not so placated when I rebelled. My teachers were pleased when I made good grades, but disappointed in me if I let them slip. And my friends included me in their activities when I went along with their plans, but they shunned me if I questioned too much, which I was prone to do. My young self was perceptive enough to understand that love and acceptance by others is naturally conditional. Why would I have ever thought that God was any different? And so I grew into adulthood, working hard to earn and keep the approval of others, including God. As a result, I completely lost my sense of self. I also lost my memory of my grandmother's God. Excuse me. By the time I reached my early 30s, the burden had become so heavy that I finally crumbled beneath its weight. Living a false self for so many years had taken its toll on me physically, mentally, and spiritually. For the first time in my entire life, I went to see a counselor, and together we ever so slowly dismantled myself and put me back together again. It was a daunting process, peeling off and sifting through layer after layer down to the core of who I am. But in the end, it was exhilarating as I discovered my inquisitive, sensitive, lovable self. And that is when I began to remember my Mama's God. I remembered how I felt at her house, the unconditional love and acceptance of her God. the way she delighted in me and drew me close, how she nurtured me and saved me and forgave me. And finally, once again, I could hear God calling me beloved. And that is when I also began to hear God calling me to proclaim the unconditional love I had experienced. So I went to seminary, and this is when I learned about all the different ways our brothers and sisters down through the centuries have understood the saving significance of Christ's death. Ways that proclaim faith in the God who loves and forgives us freely, the God who draws close to us, who even became human to be with us, the God who not only confronts evil in nonviolent ways, but also redeems and transforms us, those of us who are ensnared within it. And all of this, God does through unconditional compassion, acceptance, and forgiveness. That is grace. After I finished seminary and went through the ordination process, on the night of my ordination service, as I knelt on my knees with the bishop's hand on my head and his words in my ears, I became strangely aware of some kind of presence hovering nearby. I was reminded of the scripture verse about the ancestors and the faith, the great cloud of witnesses surrounding us. And then all of a sudden, I knew the spirit of my grandmother was with me in that sanctuary. And it made me imagine that maybe long ago, in a very different time and place, probably at the edge of a cotton field on the prairie of North Louisiana, she had knelt on her knees to be ordained by God, pledging her life to love others the way God loved her. I felt like her presence was a confirmation to me that I was in the right place. And I want to finish by sharing that there's only been one other time since then that I have felt my grandmother's presence like that. It was about a year ago, right here in this sanctuary. It was Maundy Thursday, the Maundy Thursday service, and it was the very first time I had ever visited this church. I was looking for a new church, and as I sat there, I remembered thinking that this place reminded me of my grandmother's church. Not so much in the way it looked, but in the way I felt sitting here. And then when we came forward for communion, which was intinction, I noticed that the woman in front of me had the same steel gray hair as my grandmother, cut the same length, and she even had the same slump of her shoulders. She was even wearing the same kind of striped blouse that my grandmother always wore. And that was when I began to sense once again that my grandmother's spirit was with me, as if it was confirming to me that I was in the right place. Let us pray. Oh God, you are so gracious to us, and we thank you for your abiding presence with us. We thank you that you love us with no strings attached. May we respond to your love by loving others the way you love us, by being witnesses of your love. Amen.
Thank you, Melynne. Touched a lot of hearts here this morning. Our hymn of invitation is hymn 364, Because He Lives. And we'll sing the first and last verse.
He came to love.
got a girl?